All right, Shabbosai, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin a beautiful daf ahead of us today. Baruch Hashem, a short daf, but filled with many incredible ideas and concepts. So begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share, to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tammuz, Daniel and Batsheva Pavav, Chashmonah, Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this month, the commemoration of the yahrzeit of their father, Rabbi Shlomo ben Yehuda Aryeh Vei, on the occasion of his first yahrzeit. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Shem will have an aliyah and the family in Nechama. Rabbi, with that, let us begin. So we have a lot to do today. I mean, not that much ground to cover, but a lot of conceptual work to do today. Meretz Hashem, today's daf is Lamed Daled 34. And we are picking up a Meretz Hashem on Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. I just want to back up again. Let's just begin the case once more. Though we got to the end of the Amud. Let's just pick up again, because we have the time. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. So just very quick review of the case. Reuven goes over to Shimon. Shimon, what are you doing on my land? Shimon says, I bought it from you, and I've been residing here for the years of Chazaka. So both say, so again, remember, seems to be the perfect recipe. We have all the ingredients to establish Chazaka. Number one, what do we have? We have Taina, right? I bought it from you, and we have residency, right? I've been there for 3 years. Okay, now obviously, I said yesterday there was only two ingredients to proper Chazaka. There's really 3, right? There's Taina, there's residency, and of course, Eidos, right? Because remember, again, you need testimony to back up this claim. So what happens? Now it's time for Shimon to furnish the Eidos. And what does he do? Shani. He brings forward one witness, an Eid Echad, that he's been residing in the land for 3 years. So now we've got the Taina, I bought it from you, Shimon says. Number 2, again, residency, 3 years. When it comes to Eidos, all he has is one aid that he has been residing there for 3 years. So what do you do with this? So the Gemara says, Savra Abana Kamei Abaye Lemeimar Hainu Naska de Rabbi Abba. So the Rabbanon who were standing in front of Abaye said, oh, this is the case of Naska de Rabbi Abba. Okay, so we'll say, so this is kind of where we left off yesterday. What's the case of Naska de Rabbi Abba? Here we go. Tehu Gavra, the Chotaf Naska Mechabe. So this is a really interesting case. Shimon went ahead and seized a bar, we'll call it a piece of silver from Reuven. So what happens? So Reuven obviously brings Shimon to a din Torah. So Shimon went ahead and took my silver. So Reuven brought Shimon for a din Torah in front of Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Abba came. Rabbi Abba was sitting by Rabbi Ami. So what happened? I see Chad Sahada, the Michtav Chatva Minei. Reuven brought an Eid Echad. Reuven brought an Eid Echad that Shimon had seized the silver from him. All right. Amarle, to which Shimon responded, yes, in Chatvi, vididi Chatvi. Absolutely, I did take it. Do you know why I took it? Because it's mine. Okay, so we'll say, so this is the case of Naska de Rabbi Abba. So again, Shimon takes a piece of silver from Reuven, right? Reuven brings him to a din Torah. Reuven has an Eid Echad that says, Shimon stole silver from me. Shimon agrees with the Eid Echad. Yes, I did take the silver from Reuven. But it is not as you classified it an act of theft. Rather what? I'm simply reclaiming that which was already mine. Okay. So now I both say, now we have a problem. What's the problem? The Gemara says, so first of all, before we go on, take a look at the last Rashbam on Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. Last Rashbam on 33b. Hainu Rabbi Abba, din ze domo osa din shel naska Rabbi Abba. So we'll say, so just before we go on, let's try to understand why the Gemara is equating these two cases, right? What exactly is the commonality over here? So the Gemara says, v'lo lilmod midri Rabbi Abba hayitzich l'milsa de pshitihi shi shalim akarka achrei she'in lo edim. Now we'll say, before we go on, let's go back to our case, right? What was our case? Reuven goes over to Shimon. Shimon, what are you doing on my land? Shimon says, I bought it from you and I've been residing here for 3 years. Shimon brings Eidos. What's his Eidos? An Eid Echad. Now I will say, before we go on anymore in that case, is Shimon's claim, does Shimon have a valid claim? Does Shimon have a valid claim to remain on the land? What would you say? No. Because all he has is an Eid Echad. In other words, no, he doesn't have a. In other words, it's very nice. He's making a taina, right? He's claiming residency, but he doesn't have Eidus. Eid Echad. Remember again, in order for this to work, this is a regular case, a regular dintar. You need two Eidim. So the Gemara says over here. So that's what Rashbam says. So he says, the milsa the pshitahi sheishalim akarka achari shein lo shnei edim. So it's clear that Shimon is not going to be able to hold on to the land that he is currently inhabiting, since he doesn't have two edim. He doesn't have proper testimony. The dunya ba'am medaminon also inami lakacha yumedamin haydino lenaskad Rabbi Abba ki hechi de lahadr peri im ara dahavi kimosh yesh edim da'achal peros de below edim. So we'll say, so we're going to see over here, just to be clear, the Gemara is not really so masupok about what the din in this case is, because the din is actually pretty straightforward. Remember, in order to establish taina, three ingredients. In order to establish chazaka, you need a taina claim. How did you get the land? Number two, you need residency, and number three, you need eidus. So again, you're coming forward with eid echad. Eid echad on a case like this is absolutely meaningless. So the Rashbam is just pointing out the Gemara is just trying to compare this case to the case of Rabbi Abba, Naskar Rabbi. You're going to see why, because both of them really involve an Eid Echad. Okay, so now let's go to Naskar Rabbi Abba. Shimon goes over to Ruvain, and Shimon goes ahead and takes a piece of silver from Ruvain. Ruvain says, "You stole my silver." Brings Shimon to Din Torah, Beis Din. Brings an Eid Echad. Same, so that's the commonality over here. Brings an Eid Echad. Eid Echad says, "I saw Shimon take the silver from Ruvain." Shimon says, "Yes, I took it, but what?" Here's the plot twist. Plot twist, get ready. But what? But what? It's mine. It's mine. Okay, so here we go. Oh, Rabbi Ami. So Rabbi Ami says as follows. We'll say top of Lamed Dalet. Hecha naidinua. So what do we do in this case? What exactly should we do in this case? So Heche naidinua dayone lahai dina. What should we do with Shimon in this case? The Gemara says, L'shalim. So if you're going to make Shimon pay for the silver, leka trei sahadi. So on one hand, you can't actually make Shimon pay. Why can't you make him pay? Because all Reuven is bringing forward is what? Is an Eid Echad. So as I said, remember again, to make someone liable to compensation, you need two Eidim. So to make Shimon pay, I only have an Eid Echad. Lifterei, to allow Shimon to just get off scot-free, right, not have to do anything, you can't do why? Ika chad sahada. There's one witness. Lishtava. So maybe Shimon should have to swear. Let's say, what's the problem? Why can't Shimon swear? Ha'amar michtav chatva. So first of all, there's two reasons why Shimon can't swear. What exactly would he be swearing to? Right? What would he be swearing to? In other words, remember, I'll say generally the way a shavua works. How does shavua work? We'll see this in Rashbam in just a moment. How does shavua work in the case of an Eid Echad? Right? An Eid Echad comes along, gives information. That information contradicts the defendant. So now the defendant has to swear that what he's saying is true. What's the issue in this case over here? The Eid Echad is coming along and saying that what? What did Shimon do? Took the silver. What is Shimon saying? I took it. Right? Now Shimon is saying, I took it because it's mine. So what are you going to do? So you're going to make Shimon swear? What is he going to swear? I took it? Or I didn't take it? Shimon's saying, I took it already. Furthermore, the Gemara says he also can't swear. Why can't he swear? Because by admitting that he took it, he may have relegated himself to a status of a gazlan, of a thief, and a thief is disqualified from Shavuot. So let's take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. The Rashbam is in the wide lines, about 4 lines in the Shtaba. This is interesting. The Shtaba es ha-shvuah she'id mechayvo. So if you want to make Shimon take an oath, right, swear, as well as say, normally remember again, an Eid Echad can't really affect halachic realities. The most an Eid Echad could do is get you to take a Shavua. But the problem I'll say is that generally the way the Shavua works is, the Shavua is meant for the defendant to oppose the position of the Eid Echad. That's what he's coming for. Look at the Rashbam. So he says, Eino Yachol, the Hamodi Dechataf. Again, Shimon is admitting that he stole, not that he stole, that he took the piece of silver. And the aid, normally again, if an Eid Echad is giving testimony, so remember again, let's say in the case where the Eid Echad was coming to say that Shimon took it, generally the Shavua would be that Shimon would swear that he didn't take it. Dahachi mashmakra lo yakum eid echad beish lechol avon ulechol chatos l'shalim mamon shu kofer va'id mechayvo lo yakum aval kam hu l'shua lahachish hasaid shlochatav b'mamon zeh. So I'll say this is fascinating, right? So in general, an eid echad gives testimony. The testimony of an eid echad generally doesn't do anything in halacha, but what he can do is trigger the obligation for the defendant to take a shvua, and the shvua says that which the eid echad is saying is not true. But in this case, Rashbam says, "V'gabi hach shvua pasal kigazlan eitel kol shvuos the hales leilamim l'shtabadei." So therefore, I will say, so this is fascinating, right? So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Ami was saying, what do we do with Shimon in this case, right? So let's go through all the possibilities. So to go ahead and say that Shimon should be obligated to give back the silver, can't do it. Why not? Why not? Don't have two witnesses. To say that Shimon should get off scot-free, can't do that. Why? Eid echad, there's a single witness. To say that Shimon should have to take a shvua, what is he swearing? What is he swearing? He should swear that he didn't steal or that he didn't take the silver. He himself is saying that he did take the silver. Furthermore, again, by admitting that he did take this, so what is he going to swear? Well, what's the oath? Furthermore, again, by admitting he did take it, he may have just relegated himself to the status of a gazlan, in which case he can't take a shvua anyway. But not that there's anything to take a shvua on, because he's not contradicting the Eid Echad. He's admitting that he took it. So what do we do with Shimon in this case? So I will say, this is fascinating. Amar Lu Rabbi Abba, so therefore, again, Rabbi Abba comes along. So I will say, so again, remember, just so you understand, the case was brought before Rabbi Ami, right? Rabbi Ami doesn't know what to do with Shimon in this case. So Rabbi Abba says, could I chime in over here? And Rabbi Abba says, Havi mechayiv shvua, Sheni Yachal Ishava. So ultimately, again, he's going to be Chayiv Shvua. Why? Listen to this. Sheni Yachal Ishava, v'chala mechuyev Shvua ve'eni Yachal Ishava mishalim. So Rabbi Abba essentially says, this is a case where you really have to take an oath, but you can't take an oath. And Rabbi Abba says the way it works is that any situation in which an oath would be required, but an oath can't be taken for circumstances like we just outlined, the halacha is Shvua. We impose an oath. We impose an oath. So we'll say, so this, take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Also Rabbi Abba, so Amar Rabbi Abba, Habilei, Hai Chote, V'hachanam Ikal Meimar Ki Agavna. So okay, fine. So we'll say, so therefore again, this is the case of Naska de Rabbi Abba, which is really a fascinating case. So Rabbi Abba essentially says that look, we're really stuck, right? We don't have any recourse over here, right? He can't pay because there's not two Eidim. Can't pater him because there's an Eid Echad. Can't take a Shvua because at the end of the day, first of all, it wouldn't even make sense. First of all, he can't because he may be a Gazlan, and what would he be swearing to? So therefore, in a case like this, where really what we want to do is impose a Shavua, but we can't impose a Shavua, therefore, what do you do in that case? Mishalim. We would make Shimon repay the silver. That would be the halacha. Kol sheni achal shava mishalim. So therefore, I will say, so now the Gemara wants to suggest, now what exactly is the comparison of this case to our case? And there I say, so first of all, just so you should know, in Shas, this case is considered to be a big deal. It is a big deal. This so now we'll say again, if you ever want to make Talmudic small talk, you could always say, what do you think about that case, Naska de Rabbi Abba? People are going to say, wow, look at that. They'll say, so let me say again, this is a big deal because essentially what this says is this highlights a principle. And the principle is that any situation in which a person should technically be able, where the resolution should have to be to take a shvuah, but you can't take a shvuah, you pay. You pay. That is the halacha. So I'll say, so now look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Amar le Rabbi Abba Habilei, Hai Chote V'hachanam Ikal Meimar Ki Agavna Ki Avotrei Sahadi Da'ach La Shani Chazaka Mukmina La Biadei Delokeach. So I'll say, so here's what's interesting. So the Gemara's Havamina is here's the way it wants to go ahead and compare it to our case. Our case is a little bit like this as well, right? So let's go back to our case. What's our case? Reuven goes over to Shimon. Shimon, what are you doing on my land? Shimon says, you sold it to me, and I have been here for the years of Chazakah. What does Shimon do? He brings in Eid Echad that he's been there the years of Chazakah. So the Gemara says, what do we do with this? So again, let's go through the options. If there were two witnesses, then what? Great, valid case of chazaka. Shimon keeps the land. If there are no witnesses, then obviously Shimon vacates. And by the way, not only does he vacate, but also has to pay back any produce that he has consumed over the time that he's been on the property. Now there's an Eid Echad. So what should we do in this case? Look at the Rashbam. He says, "Havachanami ikal lememar ki agavna kelvutrei sadi da achla shnei chazakim min lebiya de lokeach." So Rashbam says, if indeed there were two witnesses, so then we would establish it in the possession of Shimon. Leka sadi da achla shnei chazaka mafkin leminei madran al-mara. And now, if there are no witnesses at all, we would take it from Shimon and ultimately again give it back to Ruvain. Fine. Now, ika chat sada da achla shalosh shanim l'shtava de eid echad. The Shavua come. So we'll say, so now that there's an Eid Echad, what should we do? We should make Shimon swear. Now we'll say, now again, what would Shimon be swearing? What would he be swearing? So the Gemara says, Afilu lo hari karka lo mashpina le. So we'll say, again, once again we come to the problem. The problem would be, again, remember we'll say, the way it works with an Eid Echad and Shavua is that the Shavua is there to contradict the claim of the Eid Echad. In this case, what is the Eid Echad saying? Shimon was there for 3 years. What is Shimon saying? I was there for 3 years. So there's no shvuah. So I don't have two witnesses, therefore I can't establish the property in the possession of Shimon, right? There's no witnesses, and therefore I can't, what's the word? Evict. I can't evict. Sorry, come on. No one picked up on my hand. Motion. Right? I can't evict Shimon from the property. It says an Eid Echad. What would an Eid Echad do? Shvuah. Shimon can't take a shvuah because Shimon is agreeing with the Eid Echad. Oh, Naskat Rabbi Abba. And just like in the case of Naskat Rabbi Abba, what did you do? If you can't go ahead, no two witnesses, right? No witnesses, only one witness. But yet again, defendant can't swear. He pays. Maybe in this case over here, Shimon should have to pay. To which the Gemara says, that's a little bit ridiculous. I'm going to Abai. Abai says, whoa. I understand what you're trying to do, but the cases are ridiculously dissimilar. So the Gemara says, only Abai. Abai says, mi dami. You can't compare the cases. Hasam sada lauri kaasi ki asa achrina bahadei mafkina lamine. So you have to understand something. In the case of Naska de Rabbi Abba, why is the one witness coming? The one witness is coming to testify against Shimon, right? Remember again, Shimon took the silver from Ruvain. Ruvain has an Eid Echad that he brings to Beis Din. The testimony of the Eid Echad is Shimon stole from Ruvain. That's the whole point of the testimony, right? Now it happens to be that it's an Eid Echad, so the Eid Echad by himself can't really do all that much. But let's say, for example, another witness were to show up, right, and also give the same testimony that I saw Shimon steal silver from Ruvain. What would happen? Those two witnesses would combine to convict Shimon. However, again, the Gemara says, we'll say in our case over here, remember again, let's go back to our case. The Eid Echad, why is the Eid Echad coming along? Or who is the Eid Echad coming to support? The Echad is coming to support Shimon. So two different cases of Eid Echad. In the Naskad Rabbi Abba, right? In Naskad Rabbi Abba, the Eid Echad is coming against the defendant. In our case, the Eid Echad is coming to support Shimon's claim that he has a right, that he has a chazaka on this land. So the Gemara says, if, for example, again, in our case of the land, if a second witness were to come, mukmina la biadeh. Ultimately, again, we would go ahead and uphold Shimon's claim because now he would have all three ingredients. He would have taina, residency, and eidos. So Abai is just coming along and saying, guys, I think you're trying too hard to make this comparison, and you're making the comparison based on they're both cases of Eid Echad, but they are dramatically different cases of Eid Echad. In Naskad Rabbi Abba, essentially the Eid Echad is being brought by the plaintiff against the defendant, and therefore, again, one more witness would go ahead and seal the deal against Shimon, the defendant. In our case, the real estate case, the Eid Echad is being brought by Shimon, supporting his claim. And if there were to be another witness, it would support Shimon's claim and validate his chazaka. Therefore, the cases are not comparable. Ela idamya had Rabbi Abba. So I'll say, if you are looking for a real estate case that is comparable to the case of Naskad Rabbi Abba, if that's really what you're looking for, You can compare it to Lechad Sahada, Ulatarti Shani, Ulaperi. You can go ahead ultimately again to compare it to the case actually that we spoke about before of where Shimon again, same case. Reuben says, Shimon, what are you doing in my land? Shimon says, I bought it from you and I've been living here the years of Chazakah. And Shimon goes ahead and brings one witness. Ultimately, who testifies that Allah Chalamayse, he's been living there for 3 years. And then Rabbi say again the ramifications of that, of Shimon having to give back the land, plus any payros that were consumed. Okay, so bottom line, Rabbi say the Gemara suggests that halacha l'maisa, our case that we brought up over here is not comparable to the case of Naska de Rabbi Abba. So the Rashbam goes through the whole arichos in terms of why the case that the Gemara just quoted is comparable to the Naska de Rabbi Abba. You could just look at the first line. He says over here, Kigon Ruvain, it's the last Rashbam on the page. Kigon Ruvain de Tavi le Shimon. Ruvain goes over to Shimon. Va'amar le Gazata la'arei. Right, so Ruvain goes over to Shimon and says, Shimon, what are you doing on my land? You stole my land from me. Va'chalta perosesh nasayim, and you've been consuming the fruit illegally for the last 2 years. Va'amar le Shimon zabanta nihile. And ultimately Shimon says that's not true. Ultimately I bought it from you. Veles l'Shimon edei chazaka the dinahu la duri ar lamar. So I'll say, so this would be the case. Shimon doesn't have eidos. This would be the case ultimately comparable to Naska Rabbi Abba. Fine. So I'll say, so now let's circle back. So we kind of the Gemara brought in Naska Rabbi Abba as a little bit of a tangent to try to compare our case to that case. It turned out the comparison did not work. But Naska Rabbi Abba can be comparable to another real estate case. Let's go back to our case. What is the halach over here? Right. So let's go back to our case. Reuven says to Shimon, Shimon, what are you doing on my land? Shimon says, I bought it from you and I've been living here 3 years of chazakah. Shimon brings an eid echad that says he's been living there 3 years of chazakah. What is the halacha in that case? So we'll say, so listen to this. So the Rambam writes in Hilchos Toin B'Nitan, Perek Tes Zayin Halacha Hey. Here it is. Ruvain she'ir vehevi edim shesadazu shalo b'shimon shebesochav toin atam achartali va'achaltia shnei chazaka. Okay, so here's the case, right? Reuven has a field. So we'll say, so remember, I just want to point out in all of these cases, I know it's understood, but I'll just say it here anyway. All these cases, when Reuven claims the field is mine, we'll say, obviously, for Reuven to have a legitimate claim, he also has to prove that. In other words, you can't just walk over to someone and say, hey, you're living on my field. In other words, you have to be able, so we're always presupposing that Reuven has the ability to prove that the field in question, at least at some point in time, belonged to him. So again, Reuven goes over to Shimon. Shimon, it's my field. What are you doing on it? Shimon claimed, Taina. Shimon claims, you sold it to me. That's number one. And number two, I've been living here for 3 years. Okay, now watch this. Now Reuven's claiming, no, you didn't. You stole it from me. Now, Bein shelo hayu edim sha'achal klal, Bein shahaya sham eid echad sha'achal shalosh shanim, Eino chayiv lahachzir aperos sha'achal, sha'ir omer sheli achalti, ve'ein alav edim shemechayvin osa aperos sharma asmahoda. So Rabbi says, now listen to this. So the halacha is, the Rambam paskins, and again, it's not a chiddush. What does Shimon have to do? Shimon has to return the land. Right? Shimon has to vacate the premises. Now, why does Shimon have to vacate the premises? Why? Because Lamaisi only has eid echad. Now, the chap over here is, what doesn't he have to do? He doesn't have to return any produce that's been consumed. Now, that goes back to yesterday's daf. So we'll say, but for our purposes, halacha lamaisa. Allah Chalamaisa says v'za'id. So now, okay. So now watch this. V'za'id shei shachal shalashon the apos koch sha'ochel huba v'lo im achai sagad levichach yishaver Ruvain heses shalom machar v'tachsul asad v'yishaver Shimon heses shenu chayv l'klum ber shachal v'pater. So says, what do you do in this case? Interestingly enough, so in this case of eid achad, so the Rambam paskins, two things happen over here. Number one, Ruvain has to swear that he did not sell the land to Shimon. Interesting. Right? So Reuven swears that he did not, because remember again, an eid echad triggers a shvuah. Now remember again, now they're both going to swear something very interesting, which is that Reuven's going to swear that he did not sell the land to Shimon, and Shimon's going to swear that ultimately, again, he's not chayiv to Reuven anything. Now what does that mean? Since Shimon's been consuming produce, now Shimon's claim is that what? I've been consuming my own produce. So Shimon is going to swear that he does not owe Reuven anything, and Reuven is going to swear that halacha l'maisa he did not sell the property to Shimon. So therefore, Rabbi say, interestingly enough, as much as an Eid Echad is not really effective to go ahead to create new halachic realities, in this interesting case where Shimon does produce an Eid Echad, that he's been living on this land for 3 years, again, Reuven's going to swear that he never sold the property to Shimon. Shimon's going to swear that he did not illegally consume produce. Incredible. All right, the both say, let's go back to Amud Beis. Amud Beis, Amud Beis. Both say, great case here. Hu Arba. Listen to this. There was a boat. There was a boat. Dahavuminsu Allah Beitrei. Two people were arguing over the boat. All right, what happened? Hi Amar Didihi, Vahai Amar Didihi. They both say they're both arguing over it. Reuven, right? Reuven says the boat is mine. Shimon says the boat is mine. So both say, so now watch this. This is fascinating. Asam minayu chad lebeidin. Va'ama tefsuha adamaisina sahadi didihi. So now watch this. They both say now normally, and again, we're actually going to see this in tomorrow's daf, but we've already seen the concept. In general, whenever two people have an equal claim to something, right, and neither has the ability to prove their claim, how do we resolve it? Essentially, we'll say we do what's called kol da'alim gvar. We drop it in the middle, so to speak, and so you know what, whoever's stronger gets it. In other words, Basin doesn't have, now we'll have to see again, hopefully we'll still get to that today a little bit. But again, I will say, so now, in this case over here, right, Reuven's claiming the boat is mine. Shimon's claiming the boat is mine. Neither has any proof. So there's nothing for Beis Din to get involved with over here. There's nothing for Beis Din to do. So the Gemara says, but what happens? This is interesting. Reuven comes over to the Beis Din, and Reuven says, Beis Din, do me a favor. Can you please take the boat so that I have time to gather proof that the boat belongs to me? So it's almost as if I don't know, like almost he's asking for I don't know if this is the right legal term, like a stay judge. Like, I'm asking you now just to seize the asset, seize the property, so that this way I have the time. Because remember again, the pashtus, what happens? We'll see this more in the next sugya. What happens in kol dalam gvar? Literally, whoever stronger gets it, and it sounds like once the stronger person gets it, then what? It's done. That's what it sounds like. We'll see if that's the way it actually works. So therefore, Reuven is saying, I need time to assemble my case. So I'm asking Beis Din, take possession of the boat. Just hold it until I can present the evidence that it's mine. So I'll say, so listen to this. It's fascinating. Tafsinan lo tafsinan. Does Beis Din get involved in this or not? Does Beis Din get involved in this? So Rav Huna Amar tafsinan. Rav Huna says, we'll say, first of all, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Hi Amar Didihu, velo zeh muchsakinan ba. Now we'll say, now again, remember, at this point also, neither Reuven nor Shimon actually has physical possession of the boat, right? The boat is anchored somewhere, right? So right now, neither Reuven nor Shimon have physical possession of it. Midlo rami alam masnisi d'shnayim oxametalis shezenota ad makom she'adom agaz vezenota ad makom she'adom agaz. So I'm called alungbar. So we'll say, now watch this. So now again, the Rashbam just puts a little bit more color to this. The boat is in, right, so the ownership of the boat is machlokas, and neither has possession of the boat, because obviously if someone had possession of it, the case would be done. So here's the shaila. So tafsinon or lo tafsinon. One more Rashbam. Mi lema the tafsile Beis Din. Fine. See, fine. Actually, Rashbam is going to get ahead of us. So does the Beis Din seize it? Does the Beis Din not seize it? Rav Huna Amar tafsinon. Rav Huna says, yeah, let the Beis Din hold it until somebody has an opportunity to go ahead and furnish proof. Rabbi Yehuda Omar lo tafsinan. Rabbi Yehuda says, absolutely, we do not go ahead and seize the boat. We'll say, take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Tafsinan lo tafsinan. Mi lema de tafsila Beis Din. Da ha ila mashkech sahadi hajina mafkina kidmei kara. V'lo hifsid balsin b'tiyas as Beis Din klum. Ol dema lo tafsinan. The dema lo mashkech sahadi v'lo hajina mafkina. We'll say, now let's analyze this. So we'll say, so what is it that's unfolding over here? So Rav Huna seems to say it's pretty straightforward logic, which is hold on to it, right? Hold on to it, because again, if somebody wants a little bit more time to furnish proof, why not? If you hold it, it gives us a greater probability that we'll reach a proper resolution. Rav Yehuda says, don't get involved. Why not get involved? Because we'll say, here's the problem. Once you seize it, it's hard to release it, right? It's hard to release. In other words, I just want to point out over here, it is fascinating. I don't know, before you see this sugya, you would think to yourself, of course Beis Din would get involved. So I say there's a tremendous Moshe Haskell in this also, which is that sometimes it is good not to involve yourself in certain things. In other words, when a problem, when there's an issue which you could be instrumental in helping to navigate or helping to create a solution, there may be an important idea of getting involved. But sometimes in life, it sounds a little bit counterintuitive because we often think like the goal is roll up your sleeves and get involved in everything and help out in everything. Well, certain scenarios or certain situations where there's not really a clear resolution, sometimes it is good just to kind of stay on the sidelines and not get involved over here. So watch this. So watch this machlokes. Rav Huna says, of course, tafsinan. Look at Rashi. Rav Huna Amar tafsinan. Actually, let's read the next line first. So I want to point out, the Rashbam is so complicated, and it's also because the Rashbam never just comments on the line of Gemara, right, that he's speaking about. He always brings in the next piece also. So sometimes what you have to do is you have to read a little bit further in the Gemara, then go back in the Rashbam. So let's just read a little bit further in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Azal v'lo ashkach sahadi. So watch this. So now we have this initial machlokes. So now Reuven says to Bezdin, seize the boat, because again, I want time to be able to assemble my proof. So does Bezdin seize the boat? Rav Huna says yes, Rabbi Yehuda says no. Now watch this. This machlokes is tied to another machlokes. Azuv lo ashkach sahadi. Let's say some amount of time passes by and Reuven is unable to produce witnesses. Okay, so then in other words, it becomes clear that Reuven's not going to be able to produce witnesses. So what do you do in this case? Amar lahu. So Amar lahu, avkua v'chol da'alim gvar. So at this point, Reuven says, you know what, fine, Bezdin, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to produce witnesses, so you know what, just kind of drop the boat, so to speak, in the middle of us, and whoever's stronger will get it. So does Bezdin release the boat? So the Gemara says, mafkinon, ola mafkinon. So now Bezdin seized it. Now, neither party could furnish the proof. Does Bezdin simply go ahead and drop it in the middle and say, guys, duke it out, and whatever, whoever a stronger person gets it? Rav Yehuda Omer, lo mafkinon. Rav Yehuda says, no, once Bezdin holds it, Bezdin can't just go ahead and let it go. Both say, this is Mafur Shiraya against catch and release, right? In other words, the mice, again, you can't just apprehend something and then just let it out, right? You can't do that. In other words, once the legal system has something, right, in its confines, it's irresponsible just to release it, into the general, just to release. I don't mean it, in this case, the it is the boat. In other words, we'll say so. Lamaisa again, you can't do that. You can't do that. So the Gemara says over here, so Rav Yehuda says, lo tafsin, I'm sorry, Rav Yehuda, lo mafkinon. Now again, we'll see the Rashbam in just a moment. Right, you can't do it. Rav Papa Amar mafkinon. Rav Papa says you can. So both say, so now this whole thing makes a lot more sense, right? So now both say, so now what you have over here is, Rav Yehuda, let's go back. Rav Yehuda's shita now, both say, is actually very, very streamlined. Rav Yehuda says, we are not taking possession of the boat, right? When there's no legal claim or no legal case, because once we take it, we can't release it. Once Bezdin has something in its possession, it would be irresponsible to go ahead and just simply release it, just to release it. Look at Rashi. Look at Rashbam. Lo mafkinon. Rashbam says, "Teme'achar sheba mamon yisrael biyad Bezdin." Einan rasha'in lafkiro ela ma'akvin osamamon ad shiyado lemiyashivo. So Rabbi say this is fascinating. Rabbi Yehuda says like this: if Bezdin seizes an asset, seizes a property, and we don't know who the property belongs to, Bezdin, it would be irresponsible of Bezdin just to say, okay, we're done. Right, we're done. We hereby release it, then you guys duke it out. So Rabbi Yehuda says when Bezdin takes possession of an asset, Bezdin has the obligation to retain that asset until when? Until the time ultimately, again, that its true owner is known. Now we have a problem. Why? Because if Bezdin takes possession of that boat, they can't release it until when? Until someone is able to go ahead and present definitive proof of ownership. So therefore, this is fascinating. Now Bosai makes it. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says, if this is a case where neither party has proof of ownership, Bezdin says, we're not taking it. We're not taking it, because if we take it and you don't come through with your proof, then we're stuck with holding the asset. So that is Rabbi Yehuda's position all the way through. Therefore, Rabbi say again. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda holds that in this case, when Reuven comes along and Reuven says, "Do me a favor, hold the boat until I can furnish proof," Bezdin says, "No." Why? Because once you take it, you can't let go of it. On the other hand, Rabbi say it would appear that Rav Huna, who holds that we do go ahead and take it, Rav Huna holds like Rav Papa, ultimately again, who says no. If Reuven doesn't furnish proof, then what does Beis Din do? Beis Din says, okay, we're done, we're out. Beis Din does have the ability to go ahead and relinquish a claim over it. Not claim, but you understand. Beis Din has the right to mafkina, just to let it go. So we'll say, what's the halacha? V'hilchasa lo tafsinon. So we'll say the halacha is we pass like Rabbi Yehuda. That in other words, in this, we'll say now again, this is a very specific kind of case where again neither party has any definitive proof to their claim of ownership. So we paskin. Beis Din will not hold on to the asset until someone has the ability to furnish proof. So lo tafsinon. However, v'hecha de tafis. Let's say Beis Din did take it. Right? Let's say Beis Din ended up taking possession of it. Then what's the halacha? Lo mafkinon. Beis Din will not. It will be irresponsible for Beis Din after that to just simply release it. So we'll say, so we pass like Rabbi Huda essentially. So in this kind of case, where Reuven says, Beis Din, do me a favor, hold on to the asset until we're able to furnish proof. Beis Din will say, no. Beis Din say, but if for some reason they did seize the asset, then halacha l'maisa again, they can't release it until someone furnishes definitive proof of ownership. So we'll say, I shared with you a couple of things on the on the chat. So I just wanted to share, because to me, I think this is a fascinating halacha. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins this way. In Choshen Mishpat, Siman Kuf Lamed Tesef, I posted on the WhatsApp chat, but I'm just going to tell it to you outside. He says, Echad me'ashnayim chalukim al davar zeh. Basra Beis Din. Reuven and Shimon are having an argument about, in this case it was the boat. Reuven's claiming it belongs to him, Shimon's claiming it belongs to him. Neither has proof to support their claim. Reuven comes to Beis Din. Beis Din, I need you to hold the boat until I'm able to get my proof in order. Vamar tavsu at sha'aviraya. Ein shomin lo. The halacha is we do not listen to Reuven. Beis Din says, I'm sorry, we're not. If no one has proof, this is not a din Torah. Having a complaint against someone without proof is not a legal proceeding, and therefore we Beis Din are not getting involved. Now I will say, if you look, by the way, at the Me'ira Seinayim, the Sma on the right hand side, that's the little Zayin that's underlined there. So he says, what's going on over here? I will say, what are we concerned about? So this is fascinating. The Me'ira Seinayim writes, we'll say, what are we concerned about in this case? We're concerned that Reuven is really being deceitful. Reuven has no proof that the boat is his, right? Now listen, this is fascinating. Reuven has no proof that the boat is his. So you will say, watch this. If you're Reuven and you know you don't have proof of the boat, so this is great. So listen to this. Now let's say again, if you know that it's called the Olam Gvar, Shimon's going to get it. Now once Shimon gets it, so Reuven no longer has any recourse. But watch this. So Reuven is very smart. What does Reuven do? Reuven says to Beis Din, you hold it. Now I will say, if Beis Din holds it, there's a little bit of a roll of the dice. Reuven has nothing to lose because he's not the real owner anyway. But now if Reuven can't produce proof because he's not the real owner, let's say Shimon can't produce proof either. The only way to get that boat out of Beis Din is going to be how? It's going to be how? Through some type of pshara, through some type of compromise. So therefore, again, Reuven stands to gain something, right? So in other words, it's fascinating that in this case, Reuven, who is the rabbi, the potentially deceitful one, it's actually in his best interest that Beis Din seizes it, because that's the heightened probability that he's going to walk away with something. As opposed to if it's just called the Olam Gvar, there's a probability that Shimon's going to get it, because Shimon's the rightful owner, and therefore Reuven ends up with nothing. It's fascinating. So that he ends up as saying, we'll just, so Rabbi said, that's why I love so we're concerned if neither party could go ahead and neither party could furnish proof. We're actually concerned that Beis Din seizing the asset could actually be aiding the unscrupulous party in this dispute over here. So therefore Beis Din says, we're not getting involved. However, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, v'im tafsua Beis Din midash shneim, o she'avru v'tafsua. But however, again, if Beis Din did seize the asset, right? Whether they seized it now, and here's what's interesting. The Shulchan Aruch seems to say, if both parties ask Beis Din to seize it, then it sounds like Beis Din has a right to seize it, which I guess makes sense. Both parties say it. So if both parties wanted it, or if Beis Din for some reason went ahead and seized it anyway, Ein motzian also achis bar shalmihu. In that case, ultimately again, Beis Din can't release it. Beis Din can't release it. Ultimately again, until we know who the definitive owner is. So it's a fascinating idea. In other words, before you get involved in something, you have the right to get involved or not get involved. Once you get involved, now it's your problem. Now it's your problem. So Beis Din, again, in this case, should not get involved, but if they choose to involve themselves, then halacha l'maisa, they can't release the object ultimately until the true owner is found. Just to go ahead and give you just coming attractions for tomorrow. By the way, I also put on the chat, there's an interesting Aruch HaShulchan, all right, for tomorrow. So we'll say, just coming attractions tomorrow, one more line, then we'll stop for today. So we'll say, so now watch this, this is it. So we've been referencing this case this entire time. Reuven says the land belongs to my fathers, Shimon says the land belongs to my fathers, and neither of them have any proof to support their claim. So what's the halacha? Rav Nachman, kol da'alim gvar. Rav Nachman says, literally again, whoever is stronger, ultimately again gets possession. So two guys are arguing over something, both making the same legal claim, both unable to support the veracity of their claim. Beis Din says, guys, there's no proceedings over here. There's no legal mechanism over here. Kol da'alim gvar, whoever is stronger gets it. They both say, now what that means, just to kind of plant the seed, what is that? What is kol da'alim gvar? Is kol da'alim gvar a psak from Beis Din? Is that a ruling? We're going to see tomorrow. The Rosh holds that halacha l'maisa kol da'alim gvar is a psak. Beis Din says kol da'alim gvar in this case it's a psak halacha, or no? Maybe kol da'alim gvar says not a psak. Rather, what is it? It's a siluk. It's Beis Din removing itself. Beis Din saying we're not getting involved. So is it a legal ruling or is it a legal removal? Emir Hashem to be seen in tomorrow's Zafra Bosai. Shkoyach. All right, Chevron Zoom, have a wonderful day, everyone.